This is by far the most amount of pieces you're going to have to cut and glue together. We're making a very big, gorgeous lace tote bag, and the pattern is 14 pages long. It comes with what the final pieces should look like, but it's very clear. You match the front pocket to the front pocket, and you tape the overlaps. The front panel has 4 pieces, the base panel has 4 pieces, and the side gusset has 3 pieces. So, before the video starts, I'm not going to make you watch me put all of these together and cut them out. I'm actually going to start the video with all the pieces cut out because we've done a lot of these lace things recently, and you love them, we love them. I just wanted to make a quick little disclaimer at the beginning that the reason we're not going through all of this is because we always go through all this. So if you buy a pattern, that is what you are looking to make, and just follow the way that these are laid out. They're super easy to put together. Hey everybody. So so you had my beginning spiel here. This is what this is your pattern layout of what everything should look like when it's all taped together. I apologize, I don't really know any other way besides sending you guys to Kinko's to print this out. It'll print it on 14 pages. They're very simple to put together. It takes about 10 minutes, and then what I would suggest doing is taking these and putting them on poster board, transferring them so that you have them all in one. I put them together with a bunch of tape, and they'll be fine, but if you plan on using these for a long time, you could definitely do that, or you could do what we do and just make them out of leather and have leather templates. So today we are making sort of our ultimate lace tote bag of tote bags that we have in our design journals right now. I made a version of this years ago. I changed it up a little bit to give you guys a little more freedom, and it's going to go pretty quickly. So right here I have some 1/4-inch lace soaking in water. I have 3 1-inch straps. We're only going to need 2, but I got 3 because who knows, we might need an extra. These are going to be our handles. And the first thing we need to do is talk about how this is going to go together. So this is the bottom of our bag. The sides of our bag are going to go like this. Now, all of this is up to you. You have lots of choices here. If you want the sides of your bag to go over the bottom of your bag, then do it that way. If you want the bottom of your bag to go over the sides of your bag, then do it that way. This is the pocket. You can do 1 pocket or 2 pockets. You can do a pocket on the inside. You can do a pocket on the outside. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first do I'm going to call this my front panel because this piece isn't too pretty. I'm going to sandwich my front panel in between my bottom panel, which will go over top of it, and my pocket, which will go over top of that. Now, you can see that my holes are not circular. The holes on our patterns, on this pattern, you guys asked for some bigger holes. So I put them a little bit further in, and I made them a little bit bigger. These are 1/4-inch holes. Feel free to move them over. They're in the spot you want, so if you punch them over that way a little bit, some of you guys are doing some Mexican basket weaving and ask for different shaped holes. So these holes are just guides. I'm using a 1/4-inch oblong punch because I like the way it lays with my lace. So you have plenty of freedom here to do whatever you want, but these patterns will get you where you need to go. You just got to do some shimmying sometimes. First thing I'm going to do is grab all my lace that was soaking because we don't want this super wet, and I'm going to kind of wring it out and lay it to dry as we work. This is a very quick bag to put together. We'll have this together in less than an hour. But the reason that I wet the lace, we talked about this in the last video, is because you're basically wet molding this lace into the bag. So if you wanted to, in theory, and in the 60s and 70s, they didn't even tie any knots. They would just tuck it under, hammer it, and it would be good to go. We have bags from 50 years ago that are holding strong. So with wet molding, it really helps. But I don't want it soaking wet like this. So I'm going to just get it all in a pile, and I'm going to put it over here, and I'm just going to grab one as I need it. We are, however, going to use knots. So this is about, we're using about 5-ounce leather through everything, and then the handles are going to be like 9-ounce. I wouldn't go much thicker than 5 ounce. You can go 6. You start getting into 7, 8 territory, it gets a little dicey. You can do it, it's just hurt your hands. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take the piece of my leather that I'm going to be lacing through. I'm going to cut an angle. That'll make it easier to get everything done. We're going to skip this hole, right? This hole is for this stitch line. We only want to stitch this section across. So I'm going to come up through here and up through here. Pull. Then I'm going to add my pocket, like so. There we go. And then it's just a matter of lacing everything together, making sure that our sandwich is kind of in the right layers. If you have it flipped like that on you, just flip it back and pull, and it should treat you right. Okay, sometimes you got to back it out a little bit. Flip
Do you burnish the edges before?
You can if you want.
Yeah.
I'm doing a totally unburnished bag. I prefer on styles like this, just because of how they did it originally, to leave it totally unburnished, because there's so many seams and stuff that all burnishing is, like by hand, is just speeding up the aging process, right? So if you let it burnish naturally, you get all these beautiful burnished corners that you wouldn't get. Not that it'll stop it if you burnish it by hand first, but all this stuff ages naturally. That's my preference. Stitch line done. Now what you can do is you can just tuck this right under there, hammer it down. I'm going to go with knots just because I always go with knots. And then I'm going to hammer it down. You don't have to pull it too tight. You can literally, this can just stay like this. You don't need to, do I have just a knife? You don't need to pull it so it's super tight or anything like that. I'm just going to leave it like that. And then I'm going to grab a 1/4 pounder. Sorry for the sound. And what that's going to do is flatten that seam, but it's also going to lock that wet mold in nice and flat, so it's not going anywhere. Now the next step is we need to simply do the same thing on this side, but we need to decide whether we want to go over or under. Now I think I'm going to go over, considering we have one going over here. If I were doing just no pockets at all, I might try to go under and see how that looks. We're going to go over on this one. So you guys saw me do that one. It's the same thing over again. We'll see when this is laced up. So you can see I've skipped that first hole, started the second, wove all the way through, laced all the way through. I'm skipping this last hole. I'm ending one hole in. I'm just going to tie my knot here. If it'll let me. There we go. Tie my knot, clip her off. I like to clip at an angle, make it a little pretty. Hammer that down. And this is how quick these bags go. We have our whole body done. So the only two pieces we have left are our wings and our straps. Now, there are a few different ways you can handle your straps. We're using 1 inch thick, I believe about 8 to 9 ounce straps. You could do them a little thicker if you want. You can rivet them wherever you want. I'm actually going to punch some holes and lace them in to the bag. So you'll be able to see a little bit here, you won't be able to see it here, and they'll be nice and strong. So we need to plan that because we're going to start lacing from the bottom, lace our way up, and then when we get to our third hole, we got to add our strap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my strap and I'm going to put it right before this fourth hole here. And you can take whatever you like. I'm going to just use a little Sharpie. Make a dot there, make a dot there, make a dot there. Now your drop, which is how long your handle is up to you. I have these cut for about a 12-inch drop. So I'm going to go here, here, and here, and then I'm just going to trim off the rest with an English punch, just circular, and I'll do the same on the other one so that they both match. Then we're ready to lace this up and basically it'll be done. All these holes should line up-ish. Yep, we're good. Okay, so this is our side gusset. We're actually going to tuck this under here, which is why this curve exists. That creates our corner. It just tucks in and that's all we need to do. We're going to put this under everything else and we're going to start sewing, lacing from the bottom up. So we don't have to worry just yet about our handle. We'll worry about that in our last 3 holes. And I'm just going to do the same thing that I did for all the other seams. I'm going to, this one already has a point for me. So we're going to start on our bottom piece, get that through. When I have a lot of layers, I like to go 1 layer at a time because it can get confusing and hard when you're trying to shove a little bit of lace through 3 or 4 layers at a time, even though this one was only 2. So we're just going to go slow at this one because when you get all these layers built up, no matter how careful you are at punching, something's just not going to line up perfect. And that's okay with this style, but you just got to go slow at it and kind of muscle it into place. So for example, right here, this hole has 4 layers, which is the most we're going to encounter here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this first layer here, and I'm going to pull that through. Then I'm going to go through this second layer, and I'm going to pull that through. 3rd layer, 4th layer, so on, just making sure that my lace is facing the right direction. Now once we have them all through, we can pull. We also want to make sure on this side that our lace is facing the right direction. Now a way that you can tighten things down is you can get 2 fingers under there, and you can pull, and that'll tighten your stitch that you just did before that. On this piece, it's not as big of a deal as it is on the corners of that last bag that we did. This piece goes together pretty easily without that much tension, which is why I actually really like this piece for beginners a little bit more than that other one. The basic tote looks easier. This piece has more to cut, but it also goes together a little bit. It's less strenuous to put together. This is all Wick and Craig Veg Tan. Now with something like this, we want to make sure that's nice and tight. So I'm not going to worry about it this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my next one and I'm going to do what we were just talking about. I'm going to go 1 layer at a time, 1 layer at a time. But to make sure that this layer gets tight, I'm going to grab, well, first I'm going to make sure this is all tidy. So there we go. And as I pull, I'm going to really crank down on this side. And that'll get that layer nice and tight. And the nice thing about using wet lace is that that's going to stay there. That's not going anywhere. So for the most part, the next few stitches are what you've been seeing me doing the whole time. So we'll come back to you in a few seconds when I'm up here ready to add the strap. I'm actually going to add the strap. You have your choices. I punched them a little off center so that if I want to put them here, you see they line up with this line, or you can simply just put them inside. And I'm kind of just feeling putting them inside today and having a nice clean look. So once we get up here, we'll figure it out. This is one of those things where like we did this kind of stuff in summer camp, and I would always be like, can I like add some stitching or something, because I don't believe that this is strong enough. But after making a bunch of these bags and using them, like this is the type of bag that I carry, not this specific one, but laced bags. They really are strong enough. They never ever break. Well, not never ever, but it's a very strong way of making things. So we're going to flip this over, add in our strap here, and you can see with the way that we punched it a little off center, it's going to line up with that seam. And now we just gotta get our 3 last. Ooh, can we get through the whole thing? Hell yeah. Like that. So that's the look we get on the outside. Now, if it makes you feel more comfortable, what you can do is you can double back. Now this is a little more advanced, but I tend to do it as well just because I think it looks nice. So we're going to go through, we're going to keep this loose, right? And I'm not saying this is not a pain to do, but it does look nice. So you can double back, and this is basically what we're doing is a back stitch. We're keeping everything a little bit loose. It is a bit of a nightmare, but if your holes are big enough, it's not too bad. So we're going to pull that. This now needs to stay tight, like this, and we want a twist in this one, right? So we need this to twist so that on the outside we're getting the correct grain pattern. See? They did this in the 70s, and this also solidifies our pocket. The pain is just kind of keeping everything tight enough to work, but loose enough to work at the same time. But the nice thing is, if you double back like this, you also do not have to tie a knot at the end, which is nice in a bag because you're always putting things in a bag and you don't have to deal with a knot. So we're going to go through there, and I'm going layer by layer on this one. And this is a very old technique that I have done maybe 3 or 4 times in my life, so please excuse the lack of coordination on this one. Get that through there. Might have to get a pair of pliers to grab that little bit. So once you get this through, what you're going to do is, you're going to see that flip we don't want. So we'll pull that back out a little bit. We'll flip it right side too. And as long as we can get that there, as soon as we pull this, that'll stay right side too forever. There we go. Now, we bring this under here. That finishes that off. Then we take our pliers, we lift this up, we tuck that under, and we pull. That's all she wrote. So, cut this off here, ideally with a pair of scissors, not with a... But now, since this is wet molded, that's not going anywhere. And we have a lovely little double right there. Okay, now I just got to do that 4 more times, 3 more times. So remember, you don't have to do this part of it if you like the every other and it's staying every other. This is historically accurate to how these bags would look if you want them to. But the nice thing about this design is you can put this over, under, any way you want it, tool it, put pockets on it, do whatever. I am going to get the next side done. What I like to do with these is I like to assemble one side first. So I'm going to do this side and get our full bag basically done. Then I'm going to fold it and I'm going to do the other side because it's a lot easier to at least have 2 flat sides before you fold it and you have to start working inside the bag. So that's what I'm going to do. But you just saw me do it. So I'm going to do the exact same thing again on the other side. So we have both of our fronts laced up. We did the overstitch on both, and then on the back we don't have to do the overstitch because we don't have a pocket. So it's basically just a straight stitch. And what I like to do is I like to sew one part first, and then the insides. You just want to make it as accessible as you can, so you can hammer down the stitches. I find that very important because in a bag like this, if you don't hammer down the stitches, it can just get kind of lumpy initially. It'll wear in eventually, but you don't want to be like giving people lumpy bags. Put that on my tombstone. So this is the last side, and then we'll tuck the edges in. And the edges might look like ridiculously big, and to an extent they are, but they're big because they're going to give the bottom of this bag its body. They're going to make sure that this bag will stay square, and yeah, that's all I have to say right now. You'll see when it's done. This is the most annoying part of the whole thing, but it's not too bad. And you just got to make sure that you keep your seams really tight. Luckily, there aren't a lot of layers. You are going to notice that like some stuff comes undone, but you're going to have chance in the next couple stitches. So we want to make sure that that stays straight. And you're going to have your chance in the next couple stitches to tighten that up by doing that thing with the two fingers where you kind of crank everything down and get all the torsion right. So we're going to get this through here. And I'm going to leave this a little bit loose, like this. And then with this one, this is like the loaded, because this is all three coming together. So we're going to go through here, and then individually through here and through here. And this is the only layer on this side. It's nice when you save this side for last because we don't have a pocket. This is basically it. So I have a lot of extra thread lace in here. I don't know if you can see that, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to crank this super down like that, right? So what I'm doing is, can you see that at all? We have our two threads here. This is our first stitch. This is our second stitch. I'm really going to crank this first stitch down, and then I'm going to hold this as I pull. Well, I'm going to pull most of this through. But before I pull the entire thing through, I'm going to make sure everything's facing the right direction, which it tends to spin on you. Then I'm going to use my finger to add sort of torsion, is it? I don't know what you would call it. I'm going to do that. Torque. I'm going to torque it down. You don't want to torque it too much that you get one of these guys. So if you do this, flatten that out. That means you did a good job. And that's it. So now we're just lacing this up. This side, it's nice because you're lacing up a closed bag, but you only have 2 layers to lace through. So it's really not that bad. And we'll, like I said, our little corner buddies here will make sense in the end. And the nice thing is about this one too, just like the original lace tote that we did, is our handles are going to be installed. So basically, I got to go inside this to, basically, once we get this laced up and tied off, we just pop those corners in and we have a totally finished bag. And it looks cool. This is the kind of stuff they used to make on the street in the 70s with like sandals and stuff. And you could go and you could pick out what you wanted, and they would let you tool something if you wanted on your, we have some of those bags in our little archives. You could put your name in it or whatever, and they would just lace it up right there for you. With the difficulty of sewing a closed bag, it kind of make up for it not having to do the pocket. So we're just going to do our clip here. And now, no flipping. We're just going to tuck these in. You don't have to be, you just shove them in there and then get them right once they're in. Pull that in. Get it shaped the right way. That's why there's a curve here. And it's going to take a few days to settle, but that's totally normal. And we get this guy in. And this is my favorite part, because as soon as you're done with this, oops, microphone. you got a whole bag, and it stands on its own. Not bad. So you're going to want to work these corners. And then, oh God, if you can see in here. So there's knots at the bottom. You want the knots. These bottom knots, the reason that this one is all over the place is because the knots aren't locking it in. So what I'm going to do is probably overnight, I'll put some weight on it. And I'll bend it around and stuff. And like I said, this is kind of a free-form way of bag making. But this is what you get out of the pattern. Nice tote bag, and these age wonderfully. You get stopped a lot when you're using them. It's kind of a old school, modern take on an old school vibe. So I think, can you get the whole thing in the bag?
Yeah, it's not the handles, but.
All right. And that's it for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting all of the woven totes. It's been unbelievable in the bags that Kaylina made. It's been unbelievable to see this style come back, to see all the creativity, to see people who don't like to sew come back into the craft because lacing is more their style and start tooling again. That's why we do this. You know what I mean? We just want it to be accessible. It's helped us. We love the craft. And yeah, I'll stop waxing poetic. So thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one.